What's up, guys? I'm creating this one on the go, so I'm not going to be on camera. I'm actually still in my gym clothes, but I wanted to create this for you because this testing mechanism with ads really has allowed a lot of people to have some pretty immediate success with running paid ads. So something that's really important to remember is that when you try to test too many variables at once, you don't really have any like meaningful takeaways. So you don't really know what worked, you don't know what didn't work, and so it's important to kind of isolate. Now, this is less the case than it used to be. Now it's getting more broad, and we can talk about that in a follow-up video if you'd like. But for now, I want to show you kind of our process and maybe talk about some budgeting that maybe helps you with identifying like, hey, how do I just get a basic ad campaign going that I can scale? I'm using this right now to get like 50 to 60 cent leads. We're getting usually about a 2x ROAS, meaning return on ad spend, through one of these funnels. There's ways that we can amplify, and we can talk about various things that we're doing. We actually talk about it with our clients. You know, what do we send them to? Or we send them to a tripwire, or we send them to what we call a split funnel. Like there's a lot of different places we can send them. But all that to say, let's just dive into the testing mechanism. We can always talk about those things later. So test one, what I like to do is you always test audience first, right? If you've been listening to what I've been talking about here in the last few videos that we've done, we really have been focusing on person. It's the focus on who you serve. That's going to lead to how you serve them, how they're underserved, what they're really looking for, what they've tried that hasn't worked. Like all of that starts from person. That's always your north node. That's always what you're pursuing is who do you serve? And then what are the unique ways in which you serve them? I call that top-down versus bottom-up marketing. Again, a topic for another day. So what I like to do is create 5 different audiences, right? So I call this the audience test. Now, everything else is going to remain static. So I'll create one, let's say, static image as a creative. I will create one piece of ad copy, one headline, right? So all those remain consistent. That way you have those controls in place to be able to say, okay, great, but I need to first win with an audience. The example that I give is like, let's say you had a really good ad, but the audience was catered to like a 12-year-old audience and you were selling like life alerts. Like it doesn't make any sense, right? So like that's an extreme example, but you need to nail the audience first. If you don't get the audience first, even if your advertising is great, even if your messaging is great, it's not going to land because it's not hitting the right person. So critically important, right? So 5 audiences. So let's say we do your email list, your website visitors, and your social media followers. Maybe you put those into 3 or all into 1. And then for some of the other audiences, I'm going very broad now. Candidly, I'm going very broad. So like one of ours that's really successful is like an HGTV audience. Most of our women that we serve, and 90% female, it's marketing, right? So most of them, I know they watch those shows. Like I just know they do. So maybe there's like some home and gardening stuff we do, some homesteading as another audience. Like those are things that I know our people engage in. And then what I will do is I will hone in on the actual age of that audience. So for us, it's probably nobody less than 30. That might be pushing it. But like 35 to 55 might be the sweet spot. More realistically, probably 35 to 45. Now, I don't want to strangle the ads algorithm by only narrowing it to 10 years of age range. So I might do 30 to 50. It'll probably hone in on 35 to 45 on its own. That's what it does. So you don't want to have double layers of choking the algorithm. Like it's going to hone in on things. Just give it enough of a broad net, just not too broad. But now you can be more broad than probably ever, right? Lookalike audiences, I would probably go more interest-based. So for us, it might be like digital marketing, content marketing. So more like, less of the gurus. Like I used to really target some of the big names in marketing, like a Marie Forleo, for example, I used to use, or Amy Porterfield. Like they don't even show up they don't even populate now when you're doing your detailed targeting for your audiences at the ad set level. Like it's crazy. So that's pretty much gone away, but you can do email marketing, content marketing. Like, so whatever it is for you, interest-based, maybe personal interests, but also some professional interests as well, like things that they're going to engage with. And that's going to send the algorithm down on the right path as far as finding the right person for you. So that's test number 1. From there, right, and this is what this looks like. Right? So this was, in this case, I used a lookalike audience, or you go to create new audience and you can build it from there. And then age range, and then I'm targeting specifically female. Now, I've done both. I've done male and female, and it always hones in on female anyway. So again, that's where there's no need to really strangle the algorithm and force it. Like, it makes sense that you'd be like, no, I work with women, so only find women. And you may find that works for you, you may not. Again, that's why we're doing this testing. But what I have found is that even if I do male and female, like all, both genders, that it's going to find mostly female anyways. Again, the more it starts having wins, like if we have like pink creative or whatever, like obviously it's going to attract a female audience, and then it's just going to find more females like that. So you're sending the algorithm down a path. So what you want to do is kind of like, I'm trying to think of a metaphor that makes a lot of sense, as it relates to this, but like you just want to say, like, you don't want to give it specific, like, okay, here we go. Let's say you have somebody that's not going on a road trip. Like, you don't want to give them like every single road for 300 miles, but you give them like generalities, right? You'd be like, well, you're going to when you get to Kentucky, then you're going to want to make sure you go south on 75, but you're not like, take right turn at first light, like it's too much to remember. It's too much going on. And so maybe more broad strokes, send the algorithm down a path, but let it determine the details. Maybe that's the best metaphor I can come up with off the top of my head. So what I like to do is this. I like to get down to 3 winning audiences, right? Never get down to just run one audience. Again, you're strangling the algorithm. So 3 is probably the minimum. Sometimes all 5 work. Sometimes I just nail it, and all 5 are like winning audiences, and you just run all 5. With your campaign budget optimization, it's going to optimize regardless, and so it's going to prioritize maybe 1 or 2. And then when they're actually winning, when you get a high-performing ad notice, which you should, and I get it pretty much every time I run ads, candidly, because I've done this for a long time. But when you get that, it's going to ask you to merge anyways, and you'll just hit yes, confirm merge, and then you'll slowly start to increase your budget once you have some winners, right? Okay. Next, what I like to do is focus on what we call the hook, right? So I'm going to run, you don't need to do this, but you could run maybe 3 versions. 5 might be excessive, but like 3 hooks. So what we're talking about here is like, what's that first line that they're really getting here? Now, if you're doing a video ad, obviously it's going to be maybe here, but also you say it in the video too. But regardless, it's this first line that they're going to see before they hit expand. Now, this is much longer than it is now. Now you maybe get 3 lines of text before you have to hit like read more, right? But this is what we're talking about when we're talking about the hook. So some people call it the above creative text. I just call it the hook to make it clear and simple, whereas this is your headline, right? So those are different. So you have hook, headline. That's why I like to keep them HH. It just makes sense for me, right? So you want to test a few different versions. I would say no less than 2 to 3, ideally 3 that you're going to test. And as you build out your campaigns, now that you have winning audiences, then what you're going to do is say, here's my audiences, create 3 ad tests at the ad level with 3 versions of your hook, and then create it under one audience and then duplicate those audiences, right? So if you want me to do a follow-up, I can do that and show you how to actually build out a campaign this way. But what you don't want to do is build out each one manually and then add each one of these tests manually to each audience. So what I do is I create, let's say, audience 1, and then on the ad level, I go 1, 2, 3, right? And then that way there's 3 ads that I'm running with 3 different hooks under this one audience. And then I hit duplicate, right? That way I have, when it duplicates it with these 3 different ad hooks for each one of these audiences. Hopefully that makes sense. And again, I can follow up with a visual on this if that doesn't make sense. But that way you will literally spend hours. Like, I can get a campaign running in like 10 minutes if I've done all the preliminary work to like build out the campaign beforehand. But in terms of just the structure of getting inside of Meta platforms and running the ad, like 10 minutes. Because you're literally just going from the campaign level, you create your audiences, create one first, then however many tests you want to do as far as your ad level tests you're doing, duplicate, done. Like, that's how easy it should be. Then you're not copying over text. You might make a mistake. You might not upload the right video or the right creative for your ad, and then you don't have an actual true test, right? And in another video, I'll show you how to actually look at some qualifying metrics of like how you're testing to see if these are working. There's a couple metrics you want to look for. I don't want you to be a data nerd, but there's like 3, maybe 4 different metrics you want to look at to see if your campaign's actually working, right? So winning audiences, now we have 3. Now I get it down to 1 hook. You don't have to put it as 1. Usually it always is pretty cut and dry for me. I always find like 1 hook that really resonates. If you find more than 1, great. Then you just run those 2. If they're hitting the numbers you want them to hit, you'll know because of the engagement, which we call CTR all, meaning your hook is really grabbing people. Your creative is really grabbing people, right? So if I know people really resonate with that hook, then what I'm doing is I'm creating creatives around that hook, right? And again, this is why I like to do it in this order, because if I sink a lot of time into creating a bunch of videos, meaning the creative, but I don't know what the hook is, the winning hook, well, I've just created a bunch of videos, like 5 different versions of a video, and that sucks because I don't know what the winning hook is. So maybe I know my winning hook now. Maybe I only have to create 3 creatives instead of 5 around that. Maybe I do 2 static and 3 video, or I do 2 static and 2 video. Whatever the case may be, you can play with it as you'd like, but definitely not just one, right? Never run one creative regardless. Like even if you found winners, never run just one. They always want to mix it up, and they want their users to have a good experience on the platform. So if they're seeing the same ad all the time, the same creative, that gets annoying. It's like watching a TV show where you just keep seeing the same commercial every single ad break. Like that's super annoying. But if there's different versions of it, it doesn't matter if it's the same advertiser, it's not as annoying, right? So keep in mind, Meta is trying to keep people on the platform, because as people see on Instagram or Facebook, and the more they're engaging with that, the more they can run ads, they can show you ads, right? Like every other time you see, like it's basically every other scroll now, you're going to see an ad. Well, guess what? They're charging for that, right? If you click on it, they're charging. If you engage with it, they're charging. Or if it's impression based, they're charging for that, right? Video playthrough, they're charging for that. So whatever the campaign is optimized for, Meta makes money when you engage with ads in whatever way the person's optimized for. So they want you to show multiple versions. So do what they want, right? So what I mean by that here is this is the creative, right? So we talked about the hook, right? Now we're talking about the creative, and that means you're either on a video, you're on a static image. Video right now is working better than anything, specifically if it's optimized, for anything other than like a lead magnet. Sometimes like a PDF download type thing still, like I'll still get away with a static creative, meaning like a static image, not a video, right? But a lot of people now what they're doing is they're kind of like building in their VSLs, video sales letter, if you don't know what that means. Like basically their sales presentation, instead of like putting it behind an email wall, meaning like, hey, go to my webinar, attend my webinar, and then give me an email, and then you sign up and blah, 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 and then you get the webinar. Now they're just basically, a lot of marketers, the good ones, right? They're just basically uploading their webinar right here and just running it directly to their audience. So it's not behind an email wall. So something to explore, right? Okay, so now that we've got, let's say we narrowed down to 3 winning creatives, right? I would say that's probably what I would do. Maybe 2. Sometimes I only do 2, but most of the time I do 3. I have 3 winning creatives, 1 winning hook, and I have 3 winning audiences minimum, right? So then I'm going to do ad copy. Now, maybe there's short version, maybe there's long version, maybe there's like, so I use a lot of metaphors. You probably heard me already use metaphors in this video. And the reason I do that is because it makes people understand things in a way that maybe gives them a new frame of reference, or a frame of reference that they're familiar with, right? So like I gave like the traveling one. Like you don't want to try to tell people every step of every turn of the entire journey for a long road trip, but you give them a general idea of where they're headed. So I like to do things like that. So maybe in your ad copy, some people that are really like, they're in a technician type business where they're like really specific with what they do, right? And it's super nerdy, and like nobody understands what they're talking about because they didn't go to medical school, right? So I like to tell those people to like use metaphors, and maybe some land and some don't. So maybe you would try some variances of that. That would be an example of like why you would run different versions of the copy, right? So I do have an ad testing template, like copy-wise, that we can run through at some point. Let me know in the comments if you want to see that. But it basically sets you up to include all the elements of writing a good ad copy. So 5 versions. You get away with 3 maybe. I would say usually I'll run. This is less important. I say that. Don't hear me wrong. It really does still matter. But once you nail your audience, you nail your hook, and you're grabbing them with a good creative, as long as you don't like totally poo-poo the bed, you're probably going to be okay with 3, maybe even 2 if you really kind of like know who these people are and you're winning already with those people. Again, I don't want to dismiss the importance of good ad copy. I don't want to send you on the wrong path here. But once you nail some of these ahead of time, you really would have to, again, poo the bed to like not drive that home. So maybe less versions. Again, maybe short, long, some different metaphors, or a different call to action, like DM and versus go to my website. Like that would be a good version where you're just slightly tweaking something versus rewriting an entire ad copy. So there's subtle tweaks, not entire revisions, if that makes sense, right? So think this. So anything below, now if I expanded this the whole way down, it'd be long copy. That's what we're talking about when we talk about the ad copy, right? So it's different than the hook. The hook sets up the copy. So if I expanded this and it was long, then that's what I'm talking when I talk about ad copy, right? So this is a creative, this is the ad copy, this is the hook, right? You can't see the audience because this is actually publicly facing what we're looking at. Okay, now let's say bring that down to one. I usually do that. I usually just get down to one piece of winning copy and then I just run that, right? And then finally we have the actual headline or the description, I think is what they call it, right? One of the two. I don't know why I'm not remembering off the top of my head right now, brain fart moment, but I think it's the headline. But yeah, so here you just want to, it depends, right? So if it shouldn't reflect your hook, but it should support your hook. So sometimes you can talk about the actual offer itself, like 90% off. Sometimes you can say like free download, my content calendar template. You could say like free class. You could say like how my clients are making $10,000 more a month, like something that really grabs them that's complementary. Think like spaghetti to the meatball with your actual hook, right? So don't repeat the same thing from your hook. You're wasting opportunity, right? So like this is going to grab them. How does this support that? Because their eyes are going to go here, right? They're going to see your creative, boom, they're going to see this, and then they're going to go here, right? Learn more, buy now. Usually you always stay with learn more until you really figure it out. That's a very subtle nuance, but you can, change this to like book appointment or schedule now or buy now or whatever. I just keep it as learn more for now. And if it's a DM strategy like DM me, then you don't need anything. You don't need a button at all, like DM or comment below. But yeah, something is usually complementary to your hook. So anyways, I hope this is helpful. This is our process. So it ends up being a 1, 2, 3, 4 step, potentially 5 if you want to run some different variations of this. I usually don't, candidly. It's marginal in terms of the benefit. Like it really doesn't move the needle all that much. So winning audience, as a recap, winning audiences, usually we're going to end up with about 3, I would say no less. Winning hook, you could probably end up with just 1, maybe 2. If you want to run 3, that's fine. But again, it gets a little bit splitting hairs. Usually I'll end up just running 1. Winning creatives, so usually I'll run about 3, like 1 static and 2 video, or sometimes just 2 video, right? Or 3 static, like I've done that too for lead magnets. And then usually just 1 piece of winning copy. And then you are ready to roll. Keep in mind, these are all in order. So when you're testing one thing, you're not testing the others. You're testing your audiences. The rest of these are going to be static. And you're not going to go crazy with those so that you have those control variables in place. Because most of the time when I see people fail, like I said, with running ads is because they're testing too many things at once and they end up throwing the baby out with the bathwater. When in reality, there are elements that we're winning. So what we're doing is we're pairing winners. And if you do that, I think you're going to find that you can have success with running ads.